join me for this fresh edition of State. I'm Sunday today. Of the economy and in that. And like they would say in the literature, water here and there and not to drink. What exactly is Nigeria's problem?
Well, Nigeria's problems are multifaceted. Right from the beginning, when we had independence, we inherited the negative aspects of life.
The negative aspect of life?
Yes, from the British. The Indians inherited the positive aspects. The British taught us that religion, they brought religion, and all of a sudden, we took over religion even more than the British people. To the extent that Nigerians believe that unless you go to the mountains to go and pray, when there's no work, when you're not even walking in the first instance, you have to walk before you pray. Nigeria in the 60s was far, far better than the Southeast Asian countries, like Singapore, Malaysia. You know the history, and there's no point repeating. But the point is that we relied heavily on churches without working. That's number one. Number two, you also discover that in most countries that achieve greatness, those who fought for the independence of those countries led their countries. The Awolowo's of this world was not allowed to lead this country. If Awolowo had led this country, Nigeria would have been a giant, a world power today. You saw the achievements of Awolowo in the 50s, in the 60s, in the area of education, infrastructure, health. Before graduates left the universities, already there. Government made provisions, and of course you knew Western region had television service before France, before Canada, before some of the major countries in Europe. But because we relied heavily on so many things, for example, Nigerians imported toothpicks. And Nigeria is not a productive country. We are not producing.
We're not a productive economy.
Yes. We are just importing. You cannot survive on that. Then secondly, the issue of corruption. Or thirdly, the issue of corruption.
Maybe I should both into your talk at this point, because it's very important you've touched on something.
Yes.
We're not a productive economy, and this rhetoric seems to be something I've been hearing for only God knows when, more than.
You knew there were many industries in the old Western region.
So what changed?
To prepare bills and to move motions did nothing. How do you explain that? And they're supposed to be representing the people. And of course, by the time they get there, you hardly find them. You cannot have access to them. They remain elusive. Some of them will go to the UK, will go to the US, and come back and be saying nonsense. I wouldn't want to go into specifics. But what I'm saying is that our legislators are not representing us well in this state. And of course, that is happening at the national level. We had legislators who did not move one motion throughout the 4 or 5 year tenure in the National Assembly. How do they represent us? And that explains why people are calling for the parliamentary system of government, so they can easily be removed. So we've not been lucky to have the kind of legislators. The legislator, okay, look at what happened recently. 160 million for SUV vehicle per legislator. in Europe and in America, they would have rejected that. A Nigerian senator earns about $1.89 million a year.
One of them said they needed that because of the poor condition of our roads.
Listen, they created the problems in the first instance because when the contracts were given, they were given to people, to maybe tailors and bricklayers who had no knowledge of civil engineering, who had no knowledge of how to build solid roads.
But bricklayers and tailors are very good people.
Yes,
for that's their own area.
Yes, for
so that
it
doesn't look that we're talking about that.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I was saying that a Nigerian senator earns about $1.89 million a year. The most powerful person on earth, which is the President of the United States of America, earns only $400,000 a year. He buys food in the White House.
He buys food in the
White
House.
Yes, he entertains his guests in the White House.
Not from state resources?
No, not from state resources. And in any case, most of them hardly stay in the Senate. They hardly stay in the actions of this war. Very solid, Kano of this war. Very solid leaders who are interested in the development of the nation. They were either incarcerated or just pushed aside in a way that the military could easily do whatever they wanted to do, and in the process destroy the country. And since then, we have not had the right kind of leadership. So it's leadership that is important. And when you were talking about entrepreneurship, when I was putting in place all these ventures, some of my colleagues at OAU, they said, you have deviated from scholarship. You should be concentrating, you are doing fine in academics, but it seems you are ignoring the basic tenets, the reasons why you are there as provost of. And I told them that future heads of tertiary institutions in this country that ignore finding ways or means of generating additional income will have problems.
That's prophetic.
Yes, because our IGR was more than 30% of total expenditure when I was provost of the College of Education. And we had the state government borrowed money under Olu administration.
Borrowed money from
the college, yes, and I stand to be accosted. Borrowed money because what we did, just as we did at LASU, Professor Payo Baya of UI, University of Ibadan, Faculty of Education, one of the best professors of education in Africa. He was the foundation dean of the Lagos State College of Education. The Lagos State University. I was the foundation head of the Department of Educational Management of Lagos State University. Okebukola Peter was the foundation HOD of the Department of Educational Foundations. By the time we started, we introduced the pre-degree program into Nigerian education system. By the time we were doing it, the authority, the management of LASU said, no, you can't do this, we fail. Obaya, myself, Okebukola, Osape, and Chip, those of us in the faculty who were heads of departments, we decided that we would run the pre-degree program across the street. And when the management realized that we were dead serious, they said, okay, we should go ahead. And what we did was to admit students, and we brought them into two categories. Those who had never had science subjects at the secondary school level, and those who failed some science courses. You'll be shocked to know that within a year of intensive coaching, that those who had never had science performed better. And some of them ended up in science education with first-class degrees. So what I'm trying to say is that the whole thing depends on the leadership. And it depends, a leader must be somebody who will tell anybody to go to places, not to insult, but if you have confidence in what you are doing, It's like when I started the ventures.
So that's determination.
Oh, the determination. When I submitted, by the time I assumed duty as provost of the College of Education, I inherited 9 months salary arrears. I was scared. At one point, I wanted to go back. But one spirit told me that, listen, for me to make back. That was, in the area of education, that the NCA was forced and instilled the minimum qualification in this country. I did set of teachers in Ondo State that was supposed to be in the forefront of
education.
Less than 27 had professional qualifications. And I said this would be an area, so I decided I had to put the papers together to start the sandwich program.
Come back to the issue of the Nigerian economic debacle. You find something that's really not amusing, but maybe irritating or maybe regrettable, and that's the blame game that you find everywhere. The Buhari administration blamed the Jonathan administration for the problems of insecurity, economic downturn that was prevailing then, which were that charged to what is now happening.
Or even 500 billion in those states. Those are there. The health facilities. You could say, you can imagine what that would do to the economy of that state. But because of the leadership, because of the, and that's why, because Nigerians feel that those at the top are stealing massively, they too must join them. But if the leadership is right, of course, then you could remember during the Agbon regime, Nigerians were obeying laws, they were queuing up, they were doing everything. But once they realized that the leadership is rotten, of course, they too, they want to have the share. Yes, and that explains during elections when people will say, I need the money. Not looking at the consequences of taking that money at that time. Because when you take money from politicians, in the next 4 years, you will not see them.
Well, that also brings us to the issue of entrepreneurship. I'm very that's our area. Just this morning it was reported that 24 states cannot pay workers' salaries except they depend and rely on handouts from the federation account. And that strikes me somehow. So then, what is the ministries of agri doing in those states? What then is internal generation revenue drives of those states doing? What exactly is the problem?
Well, again, it boils down to leadership.
Still leadership.
Oh, yeah, leadership. Leadership determines most of what is happening.
The fulcrum to meet everything turns.
Yes, because somebody I read in the papers, immediately after FAC allocation, federal allocation, governors will go, many governors will go to the road exchange and mop up the dollars there. But you send government money to buy and to sell to Nigerians instead of putting in place venture. Find a black man in the civil service. Instead of flying the economy, you will go for first class. Wasting the resources that will have been plunged into the development of society. So that's the mentality of the black man. And that's why we're not, look at Haiti. Haiti is 32 nautical miles from the coast of Florida, the Western Hemisphere. Haiti is undergoing what Nigeria is undergoing. It's just that because of the resources we have in this country, that's why we are trying to better. So it's the problem of the black man. And we'll have to change that mindset.
How can the Tinubu administration cut cost of governance? Beyond this OSRC reports implementation, how can the Tinubu administration cut cost of governance? Especially when you look at the size of the cabinet, you look at the minister having special advisors, senior special assistant, and the senior special assistants having PA, and all of those lines of authority and delegation.
You also need the human resources.
I agree with you.
To monitor the various programs that you want to. I think what Tinubu needs to do is to have the courage. Nobody has had the courage. But it's to have the courage to reduce what the legislators, legislators, what they are earning. The senators, the House of Assembly, somebody, House of Rep, earning about 20-something million a month. And this money will not go down. And they will take the money, travel to all parts of the globe at the expense of the development of society. So if he has the courage to at least reduce or allow part-time system to prevail, that will go a long way, because if you know what was budgeted for just for 550 you'll be shocked. 2 years ago, the whole of the education sector got 48 billion naira. The legislators got over 300 billion. Health got about 40 billion for a whole year for all the health, primary, secondary, and tertiary health institutions, and for the universities and federal institutions. Whereas UNESCO for education had recommended minimum of 26%. They can be investigated. By the time you investigate the NMPC, the CBN, and the Post Authority, will have enough money to spend in this country.
Wow. I share your optimism, but let's talk about insecurity. Since the days of Buhari, in fact, since the days of Jonathan to Buhari, now to Tinubu, case of insecurity system worsening. Just in a fresh attack on Benue, over 30 people died. Don't let's also forget the worsening security in Plateau State, where scores of people are dying.
I agree with you.
What exactly do we do?
Have we forgotten about how Boko Haram, how the bandits, some powerful individuals in this country started Boko Haram?
Why are they more powerful than the state?
Because some of them used that for political reasons. To oppress, to intimidate, to kill and maim their opponents. That was the initial arrangement. But later, the thing got out of control. Then to compound the problem, without anything, and the bandits from Mali, those who are sent away from Mali, from Burkina Faso and others, entered Nigeria freely, and they were distributed. During the COVID era, they were distributed to all the major forests in the country. They started attacking because the initial promise to maintain them was becoming difficult, and they started killing innocent farmers. That's how it started. So for the thing it will take some time, but it will end.
When will it end?
I don't know. I'm not a prophet, and I'm not one of those prophets who will say Tinubu will die the following day he assumes duty. No, I'm not a prophet. But it will end because of measures being put in place. There's a in the illegal operations
of gold mines.
Yes. And with Alake there, Alake is finding it difficult now because the gold mines, the mineral deposits in this country are being mined by foreigners. And it's a big fight. But I know Alake is a top guy who will put an end to it. And that's another major source of revenue income for this country.
Well, because of our time, that was also one issue that got tongue to wagging recently. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu went to Qatar for a visit, and then on the sideline, our business of Nigeria's officials, and that got tongue to wagging. What was your take on that?
Well, I think the most important thing is what was the outcome? Was there any result from that trip?
Prof, don't you think we should also ask what was the functions of those sons in Qatar? Are they business people for Nigeria?
Listen, we are yet to get there. It will get to a point where whether my son travels with me to Europe or to anywhere, the result, what was the result? Were they there on vacation to enjoy themselves? It is possible Sheyi has connections and he's a businessman. When John Kennedy was president of the United States of America, his brother, immediate brother was the Attorney General of the U.S. I don't know Sheyi, I've never met him, but it is possible as a businessman also to have connections in Qatar. You and I don't know the details. Granules. We are exporting cocoa, and the exchange rate, that will also help the exchange rate to develop the economy. I remember in 1983, I just went on vacation in the US, and I was trying to get some. One guy offered me $22,000 for 45,000 naira to be paid into his account in Nigeria. I said the deal was not good enough. The military or the leadership had destroyed this country. There was a time a dollar was just 43 kobo. There was a time that was carried out, executed. That's a sign. The abandoned projects in on Joka or there, he had ordered the contractors to go back to site. In the area of education, went to my former place of work, University of Medical Sciences. Yes.
So what should he do now? Apologies, I'm butting into your flow. What should he do now at a time like this when
at a time like this, he needs to bring so many people